There was big backlash when Ben Romack came forward with the red Soviet style. A giant range of complaints came when GlenDronach mixed it up, and don't get me started on what they lost with Laphroaig and tainting the brilliant Talisker.
Look how they mess with my boy.
Now Highland Park is in the headlights, so it's about time I stop just moaning and use my over a decade of experience in the design and marketing world to give my thoughts and work out why rebrands rarely hit the standards we expect.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
So join me, Jeff Whisky, the bottle slapper in the shirt and shades, as we go down the design rabbit hole with a dram in hand. I've not got a dram. And if this sounds good, slap subscribe to support, but for now, let's crack on.
Jeff Whisky.
From whiskey to websites, rebranding can be a double-edged sword. While it's often driven with good intentions and the desire to modernize and broaden its appeal, often many consumers and brand fans see it as a disruption of something they trust and love. I'll be getting into how design changes can be an excuse to change other elements as well, like pricing, looking at you Talisker and GlenDronach, and now Highland Park.
It's a conspiracy. I knew it!
And this resistance can be even more evident in the whiskey industry, where tradition, heritage and authenticity are a huge part of the overall image that whiskey has created over so many years. So first we'll go through why it feels rare that a rebrand is for the greater good, and then focus on some well-known whiskey brands who have rebranded. Some better, some definitely worse.
Wow, wow, wow.
So we've got to start with the main point for pushback, and we humans, or any pets watching this, we don't like change. It's in our nature to be cautious when our surroundings look different, and this even goes down to labels and logos, so any change will meet resistance.
So, Mr. Tiddles, is there any whiskey rebrands that you like?
No.
Thank you for your time.
No.
And then as we come acclimatized to new looks, some people will switch over to embracing it. I certainly think more people prefer the new look of Ben Romack than the pen squiggles of the past. And at its core, branding builds on emotional and quick visual connection between the consumer and the product. A logo, packaging or design is more than just an aesthetic choice. It, in theory, represents the brand's stories and values. When a brand changes these elements, it risks disrupting that relationship. So for us whiskey drinkers, that resistance is magnified. An industry steeped in tradition, from its distilling methods to its marketing, a business that goes hand in hand with the values of authenticity, hardworking craftsmanship, and so much focus on all like the heritage and the tales. And these are all values that a brand loyalists expect to remain unchanged. So when a brand has a shake-up, especially for bottles and releases that have been staples for years, consumers can feel betrayed by the brands that they've brought and kind of lose interest in something they invested their money in for a long period of time.
You are dead to me.
And this could be even more so if it's in a way that feels like a departure from its roots, like most of these modern minimal bottle designs. Like the whiskey that they love has lost its soul. Though of course it's not all doom and gloom, not on this channel. Rebrands can help brands hit new heights, find new markets and grow stronger than ever. Chivas Regal changed their whole approach and somehow has been relatively successful targeting a younger market and getting the new people moving into Scotch. Glengoyne moved away from the old football emblem to a more premium, slicker look, though sadly the price does reflect that. And of course Arran, possibly the gold standard here, from its old pirate type to a highly accessible, eco-conscious, clean, simple and still full of character design. I think this rebrand is part of the reason that they have become like an Oswer regular and just well regarded in the whiskey world. So to now, the hot topic, putting the Viking designs in the boat and setting it on fire.
So, no, who dares to brew their own chieftain?
With a new look feeling pretty naked in comparison. This is a brand which pretty much divided fans when they first moved away from the revered for its balance of traditional and subtle like Norse mythology and style. All the words just kind of went out the window. But before it was a much subtler nod to the Norse side, and they certainly went all in with the Viking aesthetic. So before this new launch now, the launch before it, which was previously the new launch, yeah, the aesthetic was the shields, the runes, the pretty stunning custom glass bottles, and they just went full in with that iconography, and for me, I was a fan. The Viking theme was like novel, unique, and just visually striking. I know in my early days of my whiskey journey, I bought a bottle solely off their marketing and look. Also, I think it was on offer in supermarkets and it just stood out massively on the shelf. It was cool, and I still think it is. Was.
Cool.
Though saying that, I was not aware of the previous branding, so with my fresh eyes back in the whiskey world, before they were this droopy mess, that worked. I think I also bought a t-shirt from them, but I've since discovered that many didn't connect with this and felt that they leaned too much into the Viking hype, which was a bit of a cultural trend for a while, where there was just like lots of big beards in every festival selling those drinking horns. For the fans of the older branding, the old branding now, it went from a subtle nod to a kick in the helmet with this over-the-top imagery feeling overly commercial and just kind of twisting the Orkney heritage in another product to sell. So that motif had just become a bit gimmicky, and consumers felt that it overshadowed what they cared about most, the quality and character of the whiskey.
You've said that many times now.
Yes, and that's because it's so true. So very, very true.
Though I will say, in my view, I think they should have leaned into it even further. No giving vague names for releases like Scar, but given bottles actual Viking names and historical tales, lean into the gimmick at greater depth and respect for their history. Or they keep the core range and then brought out an enthusiast range where the nods are still there, but they show that there's a greater focus on the liquid, not the bottle. I certainly think having an enthusiast range for every brand is a smart move. I mean, look what Jorah's just started doing. Though either way, the look is often moaned about in online forums and reviews. Fans have criticised the excessive use of the Viking branding, described it as a distraction, so surely they'll be happy with this new rebrand, right?
No, that's not how it works.
No, of course not. This is the internet. All knee-jerk reactions are welcome. Some people are even sad enough to set up a camera and lights just to talk about it. So we are now looking at the Mr. Pringle of the whiskey world, where they pulled back everything, including his hair, in their debranding. The same has been done with Highland Park. All character has been stripped out, leaving as much personality as a slice of white bread. Though firstly, I will say I don't hate it, but this mashup of looking a bit like a Jorah knockoff is not a strong one. For me, it's really reminiscent of the recent Lefroy rebrand, where they pulled back a lot of the character following the debranded feel, which was just common practice about 5 years ago. Mountain Studios, who did the previous rebrand, the Viking one, created a pretty awesome typeface which was ahead of the current trend of stylized text, and now it has this kind of fractionally serif type which, while smart and clean, it's lacking a lot of character and doesn't quite translate well at smaller sizes. And this is often the reason for a rebrand, with everything having to be a lot more responsive to sizes. I think there is still nods to the old type, but it just falls in with other minimalist rebrands which have just been prominently seen everywhere, especially higher fashion brands. Though again, I will say this is just one opinion based on their announcement images. Bottles always look better in the hand, and I imagine in their marketing meetings the goal was to appease their previous fan base, which is certainly admirable. Though for me it feels a step too far back, where there's just no real grasp to Orkney or the Viking heritage, and feels more like it belongs in a Wes Anderson movie, especially with the highly filtered photography. With my work, I specialise in accessibility and do all I can to ensure brands meet the best standards for all users to be able to connect with a brand, and this overuse of gold foil on the boxes and the labels is going to be a real struggle to read for so many users. Even worse for us folk who try to take photos of bottles for Instagram. Of course, like with the GlenDronach rebrand, though I do feel that one works a bit better, the prices have been hiked up to match. This is another reason why we don't often trust a rebrand. Like, companies have got to pay for that work somehow, and maybe this rebrand is a way to make the brand more sellable. Edgerton Group recently sold Famous Grouse. Maybe this is another one in a all business clear out following a slowdown in the market. And that's enough conspiracy theories. Either way, who knows, more info will be coming out probably by the time I finish editing this. I had a mountain more notes I wanted to chat about, including GlenDronach's mislabeling and alienating, Taliska's gutting of heritage, and McLoughlin kind of forgetting who the audience is, but maybe that'll be for a part 2. If you've enjoyed this, slap a like, consider a subscribe, and if you've hated it, the video, not the rebranding, give a dislike, let me know your thoughts below. A huge cheers to the channel members, grateful to you all being here, cheers and all the best. Still didn't grab a glass. Is this even a whiskey channel? Cheers.